Liam Everhart lived a peaceful life as a colony engineer on the remote planet HFY, though he sometimes missed Earth. HFY was a green, lush world, full of towering forests and winding rivers, with animals that reminded him of those from Earth, but with slight alien differences. The giant trees had leaves that shimmered in the sunlight, changing colors from gold to violet and green. The sky was lavender during the day and turned deep crimson at sunset. The air was filled with the hum of strange insects and the occasional calls of alien creatures. Liam often explored the area around the colony, fascinated by the beauty of his new home. But one evening, after a long day working on the colony's power systems, something happened that he never expected. He decided to take a hike along the cliffs that overlooked the Galera River. The river was powerful and dangerous, known for its turbulent currents, and many colonists had warned him to stay away from the cliffs. But Liam loved the solitude and the challenge, so he often went there alone. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the landscape, Liam heard a distant, desperate roar coming from the river below. His heart raced as he hurried to the cliff's edge and peered down into the rushing waters. What he saw sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. Below, caught in a whirlpool, was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It looked somewhat like a leopard, but was much larger, with elongated limbs and slick, gleaming fur that shimmered with the fading light in a cascade of colors. Its powerful limbs struggled against the current, and its long, muscular tail thrashed in the water. Its fierce green eyes locked onto Liam for a brief, terrifying moment. Liam couldn't just stand there and watch the creature drown. Without thinking, he dropped his pack and jacket, kicked off his boots, and dove off the cliff into the icy water. The cold river hit him like a wall, and the current immediately pulled him downstream. His limbs were already going numb, but he had to reach the creature. With strong strokes, Liam swam towards the struggling beast. Just as its head began to sink beneath the water, he grabbed hold of its slick fur, feeling its powerful muscles tense beneath his hands. For a moment, Liam feared they would both be pulled under and drowned. But with all his strength, he managed to keep the creature's head above the water and started swimming towards the shore. It was a grueling effort, and his muscles burned as he fought the current. The creature, sensing that he was helping, stopped struggling and went limp with exhaustion. Slowly, Liam paddled towards the riverbank. Finally, his feet touched the muddy bottom, and with the last of his strength, he hauled both himself and the creature onto the shore. They collapsed in a heap, gasping for breath. The creature lay beside him, its chest rising and falling as it caught its breath. Liam lay there too, staring up at the darkening purple sky as night fell, his body aching and cold, but the adrenaline still pumping through him. When he finally sat up, Liam noticed something strange. Around the creature's neck, hidden beneath its thick fur, was a collar. He hadn't seen it during the rescue, but now it was clear. The collar was made of dark metal, etched with glowing symbols that pulsed faintly with light. His heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just some wild animal. It was wearing something, a collar, indicating it had an owner or, at the very least, some connection to intelligent life. What had Liam just saved, and who did it belong to? His pulse quickened as he realized the seriousness of the situation. This was no ordinary alien predator. Whatever this creature was, it was important. If someone had lost it, they would come looking for it. Liam stood up shakily, casting a glance at the thick forest behind him. He had no idea what could be out there, but he suddenly felt that he wasn't alone. The adrenaline from the rescue began to wear off, leaving Liam cold, exhausted, and sore. His drenched clothes clung to him, and the night air made him shiver uncontrollably. He watched the creature beside him. Its massive body was still rising and falling with heavy breaths, but the terror in its glowing green eyes had faded. Slowly, it blinked, seeming to regain its bearings. The collar around its neck still pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows across the landscape. Liam couldn't take his eyes off the collar. The symbols etched on it were unlike anything he had ever seen, not from any alien species known to humanity. They seemed older, more ancient, yet clearly advanced. He cautiously stepped closer, reaching out towards a collar. Before he could touch it, the creature growled low in its throat. He froze, pulling his hand back immediately. The creature's eyes flicked towards him, and for a tense moment, their gazes locked. "It's okay," Liam whispered softly, unsure if the creature could even understand him. "I'm not going to hurt you." The growling subsided, but the creature remained alert, watching his every move. Liam sighed and backed off, giving the creature space. Whatever this creature was, it was more than just an alien leopard, but for now, he had to figure out his next move. His comm link was still back near the cliff's edge, a good distance away. He glanced at the sky. Night had fully settled in, and the forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. The air was filled with the chirps and clicks of alien insects, and in the distance, the cries of other predators echoed. Staying on the exposed riverbank without weapons wasn't an option. He needed to get back to the colony, or at least find shelter for the night. As he took a step towards his pack, the creature stirred again, this time rising to its feet. Up close, the alien leopard was even more imposing, standing at least 6 feet tall at the shoulder. Its long, muscular body rippled with power. Despite its predatory appearance, the creature was undeniably beautiful. Its fur, now mostly dry, shimmered with a mix of green, blue, and silver, and its glowing eyes followed his every move. Liam hesitated. The creature was watching him closely, almost as if it was waiting for him to do something. Was it expecting him to lead the way? Trying to suppress his fear, Liam pointed towards the forest. "I'm going that way," he said quietly. "If you want to follow, you can, but I'm not sticking around here." To his surprise, the creature didn't try to stop him. It just stood there, watching as he walked towards the cliffs where his pack lay. Liam's heart pounded in his chest, half expecting the creature to pounce at any moment, but it didn't. It simply watched. Once he reached his pack, Liam retrieved his comm link and checked for signals. The device beeped softly. He was just out of range of the colony's communication network. He cursed under his breath. The colony was still 5 kilometers away, and trekking through the dense forest at night would be slow and dangerous. But he had no choice. He slung his pack over his shoulders and turned back to the creature, which was now sitting on its haunches, still staring at him. "All right," Liam said, swallowing his nerves. "Let's go." To his amazement, the creature stood and began walking beside him, as if it had understood him perfectly. It moved with grace and elegance, its paws making barely a sound as they padded over the soft earth. As they walked through the forest, Liam kept glancing at the creature, still unsure what to make of this bizarre situation. The trek was slow going. The forest floor was uneven, full of roots and undergrowth that constantly tripped him up. Strange noises echoed through the trees. Alien birds calling to one another, the distant growls of predators hunting. But the presence of the leopard-like creature seemed to keep most of the threats at bay. Any time a distant predator's cry came too close, the creature would let out a low growl, and the noises would stop. Liam couldn't help but notice the collar around the creature's neck pulsing faintly, as if the symbols were alive, reacting to their surroundings. Occasionally, they would glow brighter, and the creature would stop, its ears twitching as if it were listening to something Liam couldn't hear. After about an hour of walking, exhaustion began to weigh on Liam. His limbs ached from the earlier swim, and the cold night air was draining his energy. He needed to find shelter soon. The last thing he wanted was to collapse in the middle of the forest with an alien predator by his side. Just as he was about to suggest stopping for the night, the creature suddenly halted, ears perking up. It let out a low growl, its body tense as it scanned the darkness ahead. Liam's heart raced, and he strained his ears, trying to hear what had triggered the creature's alarm. But all he heard were the usual forest sounds. Then he saw it, a structure, faintly illuminated by the glowing symbols on the creature's collar. It was hidden behind thick vines and overgrowth, but it was clear this was no natural formation. It was metallic and angular, completely out of place in the wilderness. "What the heck?" Liam whispered, The leopard began moving toward the structure, and Liam, still in shock, followed. As they got closer, the outline of the structure became clearer. It was a building, ancient by the looks of it, covered in moss and plants as though it had been abandoned for centuries. The front of the building was adorned with symbols similar to those on the leopard's collar, and there was a large circular door, sealed shut. Liam's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a random structure. It was something significant, something ancient. Judging by the way the creature was acting, it had led him here on purpose. As they reached the door, the leopard pressed its head against the metal surface. The symbols on its collar glowed brightly, and with a soft hiss, the door began to open. Liam stepped back, his heart pounding as the door revealed what lay beyond. Inside, a dim blue light glowed from the walls. In the center of the room, surrounded by strange technology, was a stasis pod. Liam's breath caught in his throat as he realized what was inside. A child, an alien child, no older than 5 or 6, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the world outside. He suddenly understood what the creature had been protecting all along. Liam's mind raced as he stared at the stasis pod. Inside, the alien child lay still, suspended in a peaceful, dreamlike state. The pod was surrounded by unfamiliar technology, and the walls were covered in the same glowing symbols as the leopard's collar, gently pulsing in rhythm with the machinery. The room felt serene, almost sacred, but it didn't calm the storm of thoughts in Liam's head. The leopard let out a soft growl, but this time it wasn't a warning. It was protective. Liam slowly approached the stasis pod, his eyes locked on the child inside. The child's skin was pale lavender, with soft features and a delicate frame. Its chest rose and fell with each steady breath. Completely unaware of the years, perhaps centuries, that had passed while it slept. Liam took a deep breath, trying to make sense of everything. The creature had led him here and protected the child. But why? What was this place? And why was the child in stasis? More importantly, who or what was the child supposed to be? He circled the pod, examining the unfamiliar symbols etched along its surface. They were intricate and alien, yet felt purposeful. He reached out, touching the cold, smooth glass. As soon as he made contact, the symbols on the pod flashed brightly, and the hum of the machinery intensified. Startled, Liam stepped back. The leopard growled louder, but this time at the pod. It was as though the creature sensed a shift in the room's energy. Liam watched as the stasis pod began to open, the transparent lid retracting with a soft hiss. His heart raced. Was the child about to wake up? Was it even safe after all this time? As the lid fully opened, the machinery around the pod went silent, leaving only the faint sounds of the forest outside. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. The child remained motionless, its soft lavender skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Then, slowly, the child's eyes fluttered open. Liam held his breath as the child blinked, its large, luminous eyes focusing on him with curiosity and confusion. It didn't cry out or panic. Instead, it simply stared at Liam, trying to understand who or what he was. The child's gaze then shifted to the leopard, who had moved closer to the pod. The creature's posture softened, and it let out a soft purr, which seemed to reassure the child. Unsure of what to do, Liam knelt beside the pod, speaking gently. "Hey! It's okay. You're safe now." The child's eyes flicked back to him, and for the first time, it spoke. Its voice was soft and melodic, completely alien, but unmistakably asking a question. "Where am I?" Liam blinked in surprise. The child could speak, though not in a language he understood. He had no idea how to respond. Glancing at the leopard, hoping for some guidance, he found the creature simply watching him with its piercing green eyes. "I'm sorry," Liam said, shaking his head slightly. "I don't understand your language." The child tilted its head, thinking. It reached up, touching its throat as though trying to grasp the concept of speech. Then, after a moment, it spoke again, this time in broken, halting words of Liam's language. "Home gone?" The child's voice trembled with uncertainty. Liam's heart sank. He didn't know how to answer that. For all he knew, the child had been in stasis for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Its home could very well be gone, wiped out by time or disaster. But he couldn't bring himself to say that. Instead, he knelt closer, his voice soft and reassuring. "I don't know," Liam admitted, "but I'll help you. I promise." The child's eyes softened, though the confusion and fear didn't completely fade. The child sat up slowly in the pod, gripping the edges to steady itself. The leopard moved closer, gently nudging the child with its head, offering comfort. The child smiled faintly, resting a hand on the creature's sleek fur. Liam watched, still trying to comprehend everything. The bond between the child and the leopard was clear. They weren't just companions. They were protectors of each other. Liam's comm link beeped softly, snapping him back to reality. He quickly pulled it from his pack and checked the signal. To his relief, he was now within range of the colony's communication network. But that relief was short-lived as the enormity of what he had discovered sank in. He couldn't take this child and the leopard back to the colony without raising questions. There were too many unknowns, and he had no idea how the authorities would react to finding an ancient alien child in stasis, let alone the creature guarding it. The child, now fully awake, looked at him with wide, curious eyes. It pointed to itself and spoke softly. "Rilka." Liam smiled gently. "Rilka, that's your name?" The child nodded, then pointed at the leopard and said, "Guardian." "Guardian," Liam repeated, glancing at the creature, which now watched him with an almost regal air. It made sense. The leopard had been guarding Rilka all this time, waiting for someone or something. But who had left him here, and why? Before Liam could think further, the ground beneath them rumbled slightly. His eyes darted around the room. The technology around the stasis pod began to hum again, but this time it was more intense, more urgent. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, flickering rapidly as the room filled with a low, vibrating hum. Rilka's eyes widened in alarm, and Guardian stood up, growling softly as it sensed a change in the atmosphere. Liam's heart raced. Something was happening, and it wasn't good. "We need to go," he said quickly, grabbing his pack and motioning for Rilka to follow. The child hesitated for a moment, then nodded, slipping out of the pod and standing on shaky legs. Guardian moved protectively beside Rilka, guiding the child toward Liam as they hurried toward the exit. The rumbling grew louder, and the lights flickered erratically. Just as they burst out of the building, a deafening roar echoed through the forest. Liam looked up, his blood running cold. Above them, descending from the darkened sky, were several large alien ships. Sleek and angular, their metallic surfaces glinted in the moonlight. They hovered ominously over the treetops, their lights scanning the forest below. One of the ships let out a sharp, shrill sound, like a warning. Rilka gasped, clutching Guardian's fur as the ships descended further. "Liam," the child said, her voice trembling, "they found me." Liam's pulse quickened as the alien ships hovered over the treetops, casting long shadows across the forest. The air seemed to hum with tension, the low whine of the ships echoing in the quiet night. He gripped his pack tighter, his mind racing. Who were they? And why were they here now? More importantly, how had they found Rilka so quickly after she woke up? Rilka, still clutching Guardian's fur, looked up at Liam with wide, terrified eyes. "They're here for me," she whispered, her voice shaking. Guardian growled low, standing protectively between Liam and the alien vessels. Its glowing green eyes flicked between the ships and the surrounding forest, as if anticipating a threat from all directions. Liam took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He had no idea what they were up against, but running wasn't an option. They were deep in the wilderness, miles from the nearest colony outpost, and the ships were clearly hunting for Rilka. If they didn't act fast, there would be nowhere to hide. The largest of the alien ships lowered slightly, its sleek metallic hull now visible through the trees. It let out a piercing noise, and a bright beam of light shot down from its underside, sweeping across the forest floor. Liam instinctively ducked behind a nearby tree, pulling Rilka and Guardian with him. Rilka's small body trembled, and she clutched Liam's arm, her pale lavender skin glistening faintly in the moonlight. "They're called the Kavari," she said in a shaky voice, her eyes never leaving the ships. "They took everything, my people, my parents, my home. They were the ones who put me in the stasis pod. They wanted me to stay hidden until it was safe." Liam's heart sank as the weight of her words hit him. The Kavari. He had heard the name before, an ancient reclusive species, notorious for their ruthless tactics and advanced technology. They were the stuff of ghost stories among traders and explorers, rarely seen but feared. But they were always feared. No one knew much about the Kavari, but the few records that existed painted them as conquerors, destroying entire civilizations to keep their empire hidden. And now they were here, hunting Rilka. "How did they find you?" Liam asked, his voice low but urgent. Rilka shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "I don't know. I've been asleep for so long. My parents said the stasis pod would keep me safe, but now they're here." Liam cursed under his breath. The stasis pod must have emitted some kind of signal when it activated, alerting the Kavari to Rilka's presence. They had been waiting, watching the planet for any sign of activity related to the lost stasis pod. Now that Rilka was awake, they weren't going to leave without her. A sudden deafening crash erupted from the forest behind them. Liam turned just in time to see one of the Kavari ships land in a clearing nearby. Its sleek metal hull hissed with steam as the trees around it crackled and groaned from the ship's engines scorching the earth. The air was thick with tension, and a growing sense of dread gnawed at Liam's chest. The ship's landing ramp lowered with a mechanical whir, revealing a squad of tall, imposing figures clad in dark armor. Their helmets obscured their faces, but their glowing red eyes glared menacingly from beneath their visors. They moved with precision, weapons drawn, and began fanning out into the forest. "They're coming," Liam muttered under his breath, his mind scrambling for a plan. "We have to move," Guardian snarled, the fur along its back bristling as the Kavari soldiers advanced. The massive creature shifted, positioning itself in front of Rilka protectively, its eyes locked on the approaching threat. "They won't stop until they have me," Rilka said, her voice trembling. "They'll destroy everything to get what they want." Liam clenched his fists. The Kavari were relentless, and if they sent this many troops after one child, Rilka had to be more important than he had thought. But he wasn't going to let her fall into their hands. Not after everything. "We're not going to let that happen," he said firmly, scanning the forest for an escape route. Before he could form a plan, a sudden noise echoed from the ship's ramp, a deep mechanical voice, speaking in a harsh, guttural language. One of the Kavari soldiers stepped forward, raising a device to its helmet. A bright, pulsating light shot out from the device, sweeping over the forest like a scanner. "They're tracking us," Liam muttered, his pulse quickening. The light grew brighter as it moved in their direction. Liam's heart raced. They were going to be found in a matter of seconds, unless something drastic happened. Suddenly, Guardian let out a low growl and turned to face Liam and Rilka. Its glowing green eyes locked onto Liam's, and for a moment there was a strange, almost sentient understanding in its gaze. The creature's muscles tensed, and without warning, it lunged forward, grabbing Rilka gently by the scruff of her collar and leaping into the trees. "Guardian, no!" Rilka cried out, her voice muffled as the creature whisked her away into the dense foliage. Liam blinked in surprise, stunned by the speed and grace with which the alien leopard had disappeared into the trees with the child. His instincts screamed at him to follow, but before he could move, the Kavari soldiers were upon him. They emerged from the forest like shadows, their red eyes glowing menacingly in the dark. Liam's heart pounded as he stood frozen, his mind racing for a way out. The lead Kavari soldier stepped forward, towering over him with an imposing presence. Its dark armor gleamed in the moonlight, and the air around it crackled with energy. "Where is the child?" the soldier growled. Its voice was heavily accented, but the words were clear. Liam's throat went dry. He glanced toward the trees where Guardian had disappeared, hoping the creature had taken Rilka far enough to be safe. His mind raced with options. He could lie, try to throw the Kavari off their trail, but they weren't just soldiers. They were trackers. They could probably sense where the child had gone. "I don't know what you're talking about," Liam said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I was just hiking through the forest." The Kavari's soldier stepped closer, its red eyes narrowing. "Do not insult our intelligence, human. We know the child was awakened. The signal from the stasis pod was detected. She is the key to what we seek." Liam's mind raced. The key? What did they mean by that? There was clearly more to this than just an ancient stasis pod or a lost child. Rilka had said her parents hid her, but she didn't know why. The Kavari, however, seemed to know everything. "I don't know where she is," Liam repeated, his voice firmer. "And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you." The soldier's red eyes flared with anger, and it raised its weapon, aiming directly at Liam's chest. "Then you will die with the child's secrets." Before Liam could react, a sudden blur of motion exploded from the trees. Guardian, the alien leopard, barreled into the Kavari soldier with terrifying speed, its powerful jaws clamping down on the soldier's arm. The force of the impact sent the soldier crashing to the ground. Guardian's growl echoed through the night as it tore through the soldier's armor with ease. Liam barely had time to process what was happening before Guardian leaped at the second soldier, its glowing green eyes blazing with fury. The Kavari were caught off guard, their weapons firing wildly as they tried to fend off the massive creature. But Guardian was too fast, too powerful. It moved like a shadow, tearing through the soldiers with supernatural precision. Liam didn't waste any time. He sprinted toward the trees where Rilka was hiding, his heart pounding in his chest. The sounds of battle rang out behind him. Guardian snarls, the Kavari's shouts, and the crackle of energy weapons. But he didn't look back. Rilka was crouched in the undergrowth, her wide eyes filled with terror as Liam approached. "Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling, "they won't stop. They'll keep coming.